Russia has launched an investigation into the failed launch of a Soyuz rocket ferrying a crew to the International Space Station, ISS, which resulted in an emergency landing Thursday. Telemetry is being studied, Roscosmos Director Dmitry Rogozin said in a statement. Rescue services worked from the first second of the accident. NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Russian cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin are in what NASA Director Jim Bridenstine described as good condition after surviving an emergency landing following a booster failure on the rocket carrying them to the ISS. "I'm grateful that everyone is safe," Bridenstine said on Twitter. NASA and Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, pledged a thorough investigation after the aborted launch of a Russian Soyuz rocket. But the incident highlights recent tensions that have surfaced in a long-running collaboration in space between the U.S. and Russia. Kenny Todd, International Space Station Operations Integration Manager, said a Russian investigative commission will be tasked with trying to understand exactly what happened and what recovery efforts are needed in order to get flying again. "We'll expect to hear some details on that over the next few days from our Russian colleagues," he told reporters. "We feel confident that our Russian colleagues will figure out what's going on." The rocket was transporting Hague and Ovchinin from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan for a 6-month stay on the International Space Station. NASA currently depends on Russian Soyuz launch systems to ferry crew members to the station. Collaboration between the U.S. and Russian space agencies has largely steered clear of geopolitical controversies, despite a standoff between Washington and Moscow that has continued since Russia's annexation of the Black Sea Peninsula of Crimea from Ukraine in 2014 and allegations of Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. In August, however, the detection of a minute pressure leak on the International Space Station became the subject of intense media speculation in Russia. The leak was quickly repaired, but Roscosmos chief Dmitry Rogozin suggested that the leak was caused by something other than an accident or production defect. Speaking with reporters in Moscow before Thursday's launch, Bridenstine said that Russian-American cooperation in space remains strong, amid an investigation into the cause of the leak. "That relationship is strong, and whatever happens terrestrially, we've always been able to keep space exploration and discovery and science separate from whatever terrestrial disputes there may be," he said. "What we've got to do is we've got to very dispassionately allow the investigation to go forward without speculation, without rumor, without innuendo, without conspiracy." NASA and Roscosmos said search and rescue teams responded quickly to retrieve the crew members, whose spacecraft parachuted to Earth in an emergency landing in Kazakhstan. "It wasn't quite the day that we planned, but it is great to have Nick and Alexei at least here back on the ground again," Todd said. "Anytime you can get a crew safely home you feel very good about what you've accomplished." Dramatic footage showed the capsule carrying the crew thumping down in a plume of dust, minutes after it launched. The rocket had lifted off at 4:40 a.m. ET on a journey that was expected to involve 4 orbits of the Earth and take 6 hours. NASA earlier tweeted that there had been an issue with the booster and that its teams were heading towards the expected touchdown location. Teams have been in contact with the crew. Teams are working with our Russian partners to obtain more information about the issue with the booster from today's launch, the U.S. agency said. The crew is returning to Earth in a ballistic descent mode. Teams are working to obtain additional information from our Russian partners. Search and rescue teams are in the air and heading towards the expected touchdown location for the Soyuz spacecraft returning to Earth carrying 2 crew members. The ballistic descent is a sharper angle of landing compared to normal, NASA said. "All that really means is, it's like shooting a bullet out of a rifle barrel," said Reid Wiseman, Deputy Chief of NASA's Astronaut Office. "It starts slowly spinning the descent module so that it has aerodynamic stability as it comes back through the thicker parts of the atmosphere and then the parachute comes out and they land." He added, the crew would have experienced just a fairly benign amount of rotation, about 6 to 7 times Earth's gravity, which is not insignificant, but from everything we've seen the crew is in great shape. Wiseman said the rocket automatically initiated the abort. "So from a crew perspective certainly there's a bit of a shock in there for a moment," he said. They had a brief moment of weightlessness and then G-forces built up, the parachute came out and they landed. By Thursday afternoon, Ovchinin and Haig made their way back to Baikonur on helicopters, NASA said. The agency said the rescue crews were preparing to return them to Moscow, and Roscosmos released still images of the two crew members receiving medical evaluation in Kazakhstan. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said he expected Russian President Vladimir Putin would be briefed on the incident. Haig, who only joined NASA's astronaut corps in 2013, was on his first space mission. He and Ovchinin were due to join Expedition 57 Commander Alexander Gerst of the European Space Agency, NASA flight engineer Serena Ivanovna Chancellor and Roscosmos flight engineer Sergei Prokopyev on the ISS. They arrived at the station in June. Gerst tweeted his relief that the two astronauts were safe, saying the day's events showed again what an amazing vehicle the Soyuz is, to be able to save the crew from such a failure. Glad our friends are fine. Thanks to the rescue force of greater than 1,000 SAR professionals. Today showed again what an amazing vehicle the #Soyuz is, to be able to save the crew from such a failure. Spaceflight is hard. And we must keep trying for the benefit of humankind. #exp57 #soyuz10pic.twitter.com/h7rm to bb5c. Alexander Gerst, at @astro_alex, October 11, 2018. He added, "Spaceflight is hard. And we must keep trying for the benefit of humankind." The Expedition 57 crew members are working on hundreds of experiments in biology, biotechnology, physical science and earth science, according to NASA. Soyuz is a family of expendable launch systems developed by OKB-1 and manufactured by Progress Rocket Space Center in Samara, Russia. With over 1,700 flights since its debut in 1966, the Soyuz is the most frequently used launch vehicle in the world. When the U.S. Space Shuttle program ended in 2011, Soyuz rockets became the only launch vehicles able to transport astronauts to the International Space Station. The Soyuz vehicles are used as the launcher for the crewed Soyuz spacecraft as part of the Soyuz program, as well as to launch uncrewed Progress supply spacecraft to the International Space Station and for commercial launches marketed and operated by Starsem and Arianespace. All Soyuz rockets use RP-1 and liquid oxygen, LOX, propellant, with the exception of the Soyuz U-2, which used Synton, a variant of RP-1, with LOX. The Soyuz family is a subset of the R-7 family.